How's it going, everybody? In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about making authentic content, right? Like, that has been a problem that I've run into multiple times throughout the last decade or however long ago I started making videos. It has been very easy for me to get sucked into sort of making the types of content that people want to see or that I think people want to see, right? Same thing happened with sort of my rap itself. Same things happen on this channel. It's happened on another channel that I created content on. It's very easy to get sucked into these ideas of what you think people want to see, especially once you actually start getting a following, right? Once people are actually responding to some of the things you're creating, which is it's sort of its own problem. It's a different problem than actually getting people to see your stuff. But the difference between listening to everything everyone says and sort of starting to make what you think people want to see as opposed to creating the things that are actually natural to you, the things that actually interest you and engage you, is the difference between being able to sort of make things in the short term and make things in the long term. There have been quite a few people that I've known, and then, like I mentioned, myself, that create content and then get into a position where they're actually just focused on creating the things that they think will get them ahead, but aren't necessarily what's authentic to them or interesting to them. And it made a lot more sense to me when I had sort of a lot at stake financially, right? Like these days, I'm much more financially secure. And so I don't have to worry about sort of trying to pander to a specific type of content that I think people want to see. So it makes a lot of sense to me why artists are often sellouts, right? I spent a ton of time making content, was able to start getting sort of some momentum, and then put myself in a bucket of creating even more content in that sort of lane. And it took all the enjoyment out of it because I was so focused on sort of continuing to be successful or increasing that success that I actually lost all of the reasons that took me there in the first place. So, as you are sort of working on stuff, why is it so blurry? Okay, there we go. As you're sort of working on stuff, it really makes sense to sort of focus and prioritize on making things that are actually authentic to you. And this goes to the music as well, right? Like when I was making music, especially in the beginning, in the early stages, I really got sucked into sort of like projecting a very braggadocio style. And there were times that I sort of experimented with the things that I was more interested in making, got negative feedback, and then went back to what was working. But that is ultimately what sucked all of the enjoyment and all the interest and all the fun out of what I was doing. So if you plan on creating content, and I'm imagining most people who are still watching these videos are interested in making music, there's a difference between sort of pandering and learning from what you're doing, right? So as you create things and get feedback, really make an effort to not get sucked into sort of making what you think people want to see as opposed to what you actually want to create. Um, like it makes perfect sense to me that so many people are sellouts and so many people jump at the first opportunity that they get to make money because ultimately most creators, I would say, want to make for a living, right? So once you start seeing money or the opportunities coming, you want to double down on what's working for you. But if you lose sight of sort of the things that make it enjoyable, then you just end up with sort of a crappy job that you never wanted in the first place, right? It's just a different version of a job. And that's where I found myself, a couple years ago and why I didn't really work on this anymore. It was kind of the intersection between I'm not really making any money off of this, but I am forcing myself to do things that I'm not really interested in. So the main point of this video is basically if you are going to create content and want to have longevity, at least from my experience, the only way to really do it is to make sure that you are still engaged with the things you are creating, that they're still interesting to you, that they're still in line with what it is that you want to make, right? That's what's been such a struggle for me is the last 5 years or so, I haven't really been making music. I haven't really been listening to even that much music. And yet I would still try to go back in and create content, but from a perspective of how do I keep this channel alive to make money, basically. And that's what sucked all the energy out. Like when I started, that is not what I was doing. That is not how I learned how to do this, and it's not how I started making tutorials and videos. So again, for me, that's why this channel is going to start moving in sort of whatever direction feels nice, is because it only makes sense to me to continue on in sort of the direction that feels nice and natural. And unlike in the past, I don't have sort of these heavy financial pressures pushing me in any particular direction, right? There's not a desperation sort of to make money off of doing this. So yeah, it'll be just a totally different sort of feel. And like I said, I'm going to keep experimenting with different kinds of content, but I mainly wanted to make this to highlight that, at least in my experience, you know, if you're making content, really do your best to stay zoned in on what you actually care about. That's all I've got. So see you next time.